So the other day, the Lord spoke to me in a way that he has been doing quite often lately. What I heard right before I woke up was there is beauty in the waiting. And as I spent time with the Lord in the morning, he began to elaborate a little bit. And so that is what I'm sharing with you today. There is beauty in the waiting. Now, let me tell you, that is not a word I wanted to hear because I don't like waiting. I think like most of us, we want things now, right? That's just part of, I think, the human nature, at least currently. But nonetheless, I inclined my ear to the Lord to hear what he was saying. And I believe it's a simple word, but it is a word for those that want to continue to mature. Because as much as most of us, if not all of us, don't like hearing that there's beauty in the waiting, the reality is there's waiting in the Christian life. Every single believer goes through periods where we are waiting for different things. Even Jesus had to wait. He had to wait to go to the cross. He had to wait to resurrect. He even had to wait to ascend. He didn't just ascend right after he resurrected. He actually was on earth for 40 more days. So all I'm saying is that waiting is a part of the journey. And if we don't understand what's happening in the waiting and the necessity of times and seasons of waiting for certain things, we will lose heart. So when I heard in my sleep, there is beauty in the waiting, I actually thought of a pregnancy and how there's a process before a baby is delivered, right? And so in the morning, what I heard the Lord say is, in the waiting is the making. Obviously, we celebrate when a baby is birthed and the arrival of that baby. The baby's here. We determine a birthday based off the year that the baby was birthed, as if that's kind of the beginning of their life. But the reality is the beginning of that baby's life started at conception. And those 10 months-ish that the baby is in the womb, the baby is being developed. The baby is being made. We all know that if a baby is born early or too early, the baby has a good chance of being underdeveloped. There can be necessary functions, parts, and abilities that have not been developed. Therefore, the baby could have deformities, it can have weaknesses, and missing essential components to having a good quality life, right? The mind shift here that I believe God is trying to help us get to is that the making of something, whatever it is, right? Fill in the blank, the dream, the desire, the call, the assignment, the promise, the things that we're believing for. The making of these things does not just happen. The reality of these things does not just happen once we see it in the natural. The making and reality of these things is already happening in seasons prior. In reference to the imagery of the baby does not just come out of thin air into your hands. There is a process of development. So when that baby comes into your possession, it is ready for life. And it carries in and of itself a life that is sustainable. You know, for an example, waiting on God to bring you the right spouse and to have the kind of marriage that you're believing for, the one where Christ is at the center, you're equally yoked, and you're going in the same direction together, and you're working together to build a lifetime of unity and companionship. Yeah? Purposeful, God, Christ-centered, all these things. Okay. Well, while you're waiting, see, the reality is sometimes the mindset is, oh, once my husband comes, now we are working on a marriage. Now we are working our way towards this life that I've been believing for, right? This married life. But the reality is, when you're waiting for that person, if you're waiting correctly, if you're working on yourself, if you're prioritizing God, if you're doing the things that He's already called you to do and shown you to do, if you're waiting the correct way, then you're actually already participating in the happening of that dream. It may not be fully realized yet, but it's actually in the process of being realized. Because if you are becoming the woman of God that God has called you to be, or you are becoming the man of God that God has called you to be, you are developing and maturing, then when that relationship comes, just like a baby that's able to go full term and be fully developed, well, in comparison to a baby that might be born prematurely, that baby may have so many difficulties, may have so many health issues, cognitive issues, like intellectual issues. Like this baby has the potential to have so many more problems because it did not complete its process of development that it needed to sustain a higher quality of life. In the same way, your marriage has the potential to have so many more problems if you are not allowing the process to be done in the waiting. If you are not allowing the development that God is doing in developing you individually, developing your spouse individually before you even know each other. And so if you do it the right way, if you participate with God in the waiting, he's already working on it and making it happen. And then when he culminates it by bringing you together, then you now can sustain a marriage at a level of joy and success and oneness and purpose that would not have been possible otherwise. Remember, in the waiting is the making, and that is the beauty of the waiting. You're not just sitting down in a chair waiting on God for time to pass so that you can begin the thing that you're believing for. If you will participate with God in the waiting process, whatever way he's asking for you to participate in your obedience and your surrender to God, then you are already in the middle of it happening right now. You are no longer waiting for it to happen, but the happening has begun in your waiting. You know, we sing this song right now that's so popular in the church. Even when I don't see it, you're working. Even when I don't feel it, you're working. Okay, now that's true in multiple ways. Like, God's always working, but we're singing that song personally. Like, you're not just working in the universe, God. I'm singing this song meaning even when I don't see it, you're working in my life. Even when I don't feel it, you're working in my life. And that is what I'm talking about here. It's not just a song we sing. This is a reality. The beauty of the waiting is not to just sit down and waste time. It's get on board, participate with God, give everything that's before you 100% of your heart, your passion. Do it with excellence. Seek the Lord like tomorrow's your last day of living. Don't wait. Don't put it off. Be fully invested in your relationship with God and the things that he has for you to do right now. And when you position yourself like that, then you are already in the happening of what you're believing for before it's manifested. And that is what God is trying to encourage you guys with today. Encourage me with today. James chapter 1, verse 2 and 4 says, "Count it all joy, my brothers, when you meet trials of various kinds, for you know that the testing of your faith produces steadfastness." In other versions, it says patience. "And let steadfastness have its full effect, that you may be perfect and complete, lacking nothing." So clearly, if you have to remain patient, if you have to endure, if you have to remain steadfast, you are in a state of waiting for something. And in that process, the Lord is working in the situation that you're believing for, and he's equally working in you, developing your character and your ability to be able to sustain and manage whatever it is that you are waiting on God for. The work that God creates will cause people to marvel. So understand that he is not going to leave you half finished, and he is not going to set you up for failure to give you something that is not completely ready for you and that you are not ready for it, because he is not going to be the author of your destruction, nor is he going to do something that is going to cause him to ever have something that reflects back on him as being poorly done or being anything that is subpar. Remember, he is holy, he is set apart. He is not like anything common or ordinary. That means the work that he's doing for you and through you is not going to result in something that is common. It's not going to result in something that is ordinary. It is going to be extraordinary. It is going to be marvelous and wonderful. It is going to be something that multitudes will speak about. So stay the course in your waiting. Do your part. And participate with God. Be invested in everything that God has put you in right now in your life, and continue to believe for whatever you're waiting for. I'm going to leave with this. When I say waiting, I do not mean something passive. That is not biblical waiting. You will never find an account of that. Waiting is exactly what I told you. You are invested. You are participating. You are walking with the Lord. You are in fellowship with him on a continual basis. You are in partnership with him in all the things that your life is connected to. That is how you wait. You lay hold of those promises. You don't let go, and you do everything in your power to position yourself to grow, to prepare for the thing, and also for God to do what he needs to do on the other end, the part that you don't see. And you will walk into the fulfillment and completion of that thing. Okay? So I hope this blessed and encouraged you. Remember, he will perfect that which concerns you. He will bring things to completion. Everything has a season. Everything has a time. So stay the course. Be blessed, and I'll see you on the next one.